Good morning. Welcome to my Guam living room again. Um, I am back from a 4-week trip where I was able to immerse myself in the many practices I love, including dance movement therapy, authentic movement, and being able to teach those and also run a retreat in New Zealand um, this past November, a couple weeks ago. So I was able to investigate a lot of my own questions about the practices and just new discoveries. And it's wonderful to be in a place of experience with practices because with a large enough vocabulary. So, for instance, if you were a yoga practitioner, so after, you know, learning the yoga vocabulary and going into poses, you might have a time in your practice where you're able to really ask a few questions about the practice in terms of, is this the right practice for me? Does this work for me? And so today we're going to investigate through different dance and movement practices. How do we look at decision making in our life or questions that are arising? And we could separate that out a bit because sometimes the questions just, or decisions are about everyday living. So hey, Beth. So the first little practice comes from having done a bit of studying with Katie Hendricks around body intelligence, and that's finding your inner yes and your inner no. And when you know that in your body, it's a little bit easier, especially with those everyday decisions, like deciding what kind of, hi Beth, what kind of clothing you want to wear. So I don't like to say that deciding what you eat is simple because many people have issues around eating. So I don't think of that as necessarily a simple decision. But as far as looking at your inner yes and your inner no, if you just kind of come into what's the easiest way for you to be in your body and just noticing, it could be something like I'm really happy to say wear this today. So this is my decision. I decided to put this piece of clothing on that I found in an off shelf in New Zealand. So you can say, where does the yes, where are you feeling the yes about this piece of clothing in your body? So for instance, I kind of feel a little bit of energy around my heart, a little bit of, you know, what I would call a bit of expansion, and sort of an opening up to something. And so that might be my inner yes, or it might be my inner yes for today. So we might have different days so for me, it might be a movement like this, like sort of I'm going forward to receive that and bring that into myself. So that might be my inner yes. Now, if you go inside and say, well, I might not want to, you know, do something, so what's your inner no? So maybe I didn't want to wear a black shirt or something, when I think of that black tunic or whatever, how does that make me feel? How am I feeling inside right now with that? What's my inner no? And I feel like there's a slight retreating in myself as I say, no, I don't want to wear that. So, you can play around with your inner yes and your inner no. And again, this comes from Katie Hendricks' work, and I think Lamar Martell, I think that's what her last name is, for body intelligence. So that's one way to look at, decision making. Another way to look at, either questions in your life or decision you're toying with is something that comes from the Bar-Tiniev fundamental work, which Peggy Hackney wrote about. And it's just having a bit of space to do a head-tail dance. So if you just come into the simple way to come into head-tail, it's just to start investigating that sort of cat and dog tilt from yoga, or you can just be circling in your pelvis. So what if we start a little bit of the head-tail thing? And you're free to say, write down a question you're exploring. You can keep notes for yourself, and I would suggest after this live you can play with that. So if you're playing with that head tail, you can find some good music. I didn't pair music very well today. Play with that head tail, with the idea that, going into the tail is a playful event, might give you some other ideas. So what does a head tail dance look like for you? So you can come up to standing and just do a little bit of rolling through the spine. This could be a really good warm-up too. So not just about making choices or making decisions, but you can start playing with, that head-tail dance. How does the head-tail move up the spine? And then you can imagine the question or the decision, and you can just let it move through you, or you can just start to play with the dance and forget about it. And allowing yourself, in your own space, when you have time to really explore this more fully, to find the music that might support you in this head-tail dance. I like to find something that's got rhythm, that probably has a more strong beat, and that's often how I like to explore decisions or questions. And there goes hand off, doing my screen down. So we do have to have a little bit of humor and playfulness, and this head-tail dance is a bit of that humor and playfulness. So that's one way that we can look or investigate our own decision-making or our own questions. So another way is to, and Orit did this a little bit on the video, is play with, in our Laban work, we call it the planes. So we've got 3 planes. We've got the horizontal that goes forward and back and side to side. So it's got 2 dimensions. It's got the sagittal dimension, and it's got the horizontal dimension. The second plane is the vertical plane. It's the door plane. It's how we present ourselves. And the door plane has side to side, so that horizontal dimension, and that vertical dimension, which is the rising and the sinking in that vertical plane. So we were just doing that with the spine. So this is one of the planes, and then the other plane is the sagittal, which actually is called the decision-making plane. So that's the forward and back, and then the vertical dimension up and down. So with these planes, of course, you can play with, with the horizontal, sort of you're gathering information. So that can be about your decision. And then you can also scatter and say, well, that's not really relevant. That piece of information doesn't serve me. So you're also discarding ideas. So you're bringing in some ideas and you're releasing others. But then you can also just be in that plane. And it's almost like being in all the possibilities too. It's also the communication plane. So we're really just taking things in and then bringing them out or letting go of those possibilities that don't feel quite relevant right now. So it's that gathering and the scattering. And what does that plane serve you? In decision making. And so in every decision or in every bit of learning that we do in life, we do a lot of this gathering information, but not all of it's relevant. So we also need to release information. So that's a very important piece. And you know, some of us, when we make decisions, we write the columns of the pros and the cons, but that doesn't always do the trick. That's more of a intellectual decision, unless you also bring the body into it and the feelings into it. That you know that's a more integrated approach to decision making. Then the next plane would be the vertical plane. So if you're facing the decision, you might just sit in the decision like, is this how I want to be with this? This is where I've kind of made a decision and I'm really into my weight. I'm really into, does this feel correct for me? Do I feel that I'm sort of in integrity with my spine? Am I feeling really like this is how I want to be in this decision making and this learning? So you can, you know, sometimes just go into stillness and ground into that. I mean, I'm thinking of even my son making the decision of his college and writing things down, but I feel like there was something also going on in his body about where it felt right to be when he was deciding between two different schools. And we could see, but my sister-in-law helped him make that decision. So he was clearly having second thoughts about what he thought was his original decision. So, of course, give yourself that space around it. I mean, sometimes you have to make quick decisions. And I've got one coming up to make. So, yeah, it's not a completely irrational process. So what does it feel like to be in that door plane, that presentation itself? And then the third plane is your wheel plane, and it's the actual decision making. It's actual taking those steps. So it's like a wheel, and so this is your action-oriented plane. So now it's time to take action in any particular decision that you're making, and you can feel into, well, what's the next step I want to play with? So of course, in your own time, and you can take this. You know, one day you might just want to feel into the horizontal plane around different decisions you're facing. And hey, you could do a very quick dance about, okay, do I want to wear this or do I want to wear that? And then you just play with, you know, what feels like your inner yes and your inner no around what to wear. So for me, that feels like a less emotionally loaded decision, even though I love my clothes and I love being bright and cheery and all that, about what feels right to wear today. So I've made that decision, obviously, by putting on this new little frock that I got in New Zealand. But anyway, so what is it like? And right now, because I'm talking about the frock, I'm like, oh, and these two mullets look so gorgeous on it, and I just love the little color combination in it. So I'm feeling quite excited in my decision and playing with that decision. So that's my little thing. So then, because we've been moving, we can go into a little bit of recuperation. And another process that is a very important place in my life is authentic movement. And in authentic movement, we usually close our eyes and just follow what our impulse is. And sometimes you can write down a query, a question, where you're trying to make a decision, and just let the body just lead you to whatever that is. Now, I'm just going to keep my eyes open right now, but you know, when you close your eyes, if that feels safe for you, of course, you just notice, well, what are the most relevant impulses right now? What am I really feeling into? And how do I want to allow that to move? And I'm just going to allow myself to fill it out. There's also some description from Christine Caldwell about micro movements. So you can often just feel your way into micro movements, like what is, and I'm a little bit bigger than micro because I'm allowing it to be more visible so that you can see my movement. And right now I'm really feeling the need to move into my right side, which if we do that masculine, feminine stuff, it's probably more my masculine side. It's, you know, taking some steps into the world, some real action. So that's what I'm feeling as I explore this and try to follow whatever impulse it is. So of course you can find time. It's really, the practice really involves witnesses. And so having a witness is really lovely. And any person can be your witness. Like Janet Adler used to have an artist just draw her as her witness. So you find somebody you really deeply trust and respect in your life, and you say, hey, I want to follow this movement process, authentic movement, and I really need you to witness me, then you can set that up that works for you and just explore for as long as you want. You can do a couple of minutes, you can do 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you can do 20 minutes. So, just allowing the body to follow its own, fill out its own impulses. And you can start with just that micro movement. Where are you feeling that movement in your body? What are you noticing in particular? So that's another way to go. And then another thing I thought about today was a fourth way of exploring. Hi, Heidi. It's lovely to see you. The fourth way to explore is just starting to move in pathways. Now, one of my little things is I get a little tired of the expression about moving forward. And we know that, metaphors can be quite literal, but metaphors also can be larger and hold a larger picture for us. So when we just move forward, what's that about? So we can start to play with stepping into forward, but see, as a dancer, we don't always step forward. We step sideways, we step backwards, we go high, we go low. So if we start to play with space and pathways through space, what is that around our decision making or our question that we may have right now of a step that we want to take in our lives? So, there's the bigger existential questions and decisions, and then there's also our day-to-day. So I would suggest starting to practice in your day-to-day life with just what you're wearing today, and maybe which tea you're going to drink in the morning, which coffee, or what I'm going to put in my coffee or something. I don't know. Everybody's going to be different. So if we start to make pathways through space, and I didn't set up any music for today, but one of my favorite pieces of music to do this is Enya's song that's, has the words, it's either this way or that way, it's one way or the other. It could be on reflection, etc., etc. I'm not going to sing it, but I like playing in that song because it does feel like I'm either this way or I'm that way or I'm up or I'm down. And so you can start to design a little play with it, and you can add actually what that decision is too. You can say to yourself out loud or inside, my decision is about X and Y, and so here's the pathway that leads me to X, or here's the pathway that leads me to Y, and you can just play that, which also reminds me of another movement exploration, which can be setting up a little bit of a grid. So this is how I am if I make one decision, and this is how I am if I make another. And of course, this is saying that it's an either or, and we all know that either or is one way, and then there's middle ground. So, another way to play with, if you're trying to make some decision, is what does it feel if I'm on this side of the decision? And what does it feel like I'm on that side of the decision? So these are just little movement explorations to put you in the spirit of play, because I really believe that's one of our strong qualities in this. And I want to end the little live with a quote from Rilke, who's a German poet, and he said, have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or book written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which would not be given to you by now, because you would not be able to live them. Live the questions now. Perhaps then someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. So again, I'll read that. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which would not be given to you now because would not be able to live them. Live the questions now, perhaps then, someday, far into the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. So these were just about 5 practices to go into living your questions, looking at your decisions. So one, I'll just sum it up. One was playing with that inner yes and inner no in your body. Another one was um, going into a little play with the head tail, a little dance about using your spine. A third one was working in the planes, the horizontal, the vertical, the sagittal. The fourth one was going into a bit of authentic movement exploration. Actually, there's kind of 6, aren't there? Another one was going into pathways and creating pathways, maybe using music, and just noticing where that leads you. Pathways in space, going up and down, using space, different levels of space. And then the 6th one was like a grid. So this is one way if you make a decision on one side of the room and the other, and you just feel into those. And as I suggest, you can start simple with everyday decisions that you make every day. Sometimes we make these, we're in habit, so we make them unconsciously, but perhaps we want to make a little change in our daily life and set aside time to play with this. So, I'm just inviting you to play with your own creativity around movement exploration. So perhaps in the future we'll go into one of these explorations with a little more depth. This is just a little invitation to how do you make decisions. Hi, Anne. Anne's here too. So nice to see so many of you live, because I was a bit doubtful when I put up that I would go live today last night after my beautiful massage. And so now I'm very grateful to be back in Guam for a little while and to offer a live. So I'll probably do one early next week and I'll keep you posted. So again, blessings for a beautiful day, a beautiful night, a beautiful sleep, wherever you are in your cycle of the day. My deepest gratitude for seeing you with me today. Thank you.